Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
Our top story is the remarkable recovery of Rabbi Yehuda Glick, who was critically wounded in a Jerusalem terrorist attack. Rabbi Glick is a dual U.S.-Israeli citizen and a prominent advocate of the rights of the Jewish and Christian communities to pray on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem's Old City, a move that is violently opposed by Muslims. He had just finished a lecture at the Begin Heritage Center in the capital about the discrimination against the rights to pray at the holy site when an Arab gunman on a motorcycle opened fire at point-blank range, hitting the rabbi in the chest and abdomen before fleeing the scene. Glick has undergone multiple surgeries to repair the damage after 4 bullets tore through his lungs, intestines, and near his spinal column. But physicians at the Shar Tzedek Hospital say they are optimistic that the victim will be left with minimal disabilities from the attempted assassination. Erin has more on that story.
Yes, Yochanan. The 32-year-old terrorist who opened fire at Rabbi Glick was shot dead the following morning after police anti-terror units tracked him to his home in the Jerusalem neighborhood of Abu Tor. The Islamic Jihad terror group identified Mu'taz Hijazi as one of its members, who was released from Israeli prison just 2 years ago after spending 11 years behind bars for security violations. In a very rare occurrence, the Temple Mount compound was closed to worshipers of all faiths the day after the shooting in attempts to avert friction. But Arab rioting erupted after Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas' Fatah party and the Islamist terrorist organization Hamas called for a day of rage in protest of the decision. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh stoked Palestinian emotions even more by falsely claiming that the Israeli government is seriously considering destroying the Al-Aqsa Mosque by digging tunnels underneath it. Tensions further increased when Abbas reportedly sent a letter of condolence to the Hijazi family, expressing his anger and condemnation over the heinous crime committed by terrorist Israeli gangs, and declared the gunman to be a Palestinian martyr. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reacted with disbelief and said that it is time for the international community to condemn Abbas for sending condolences over the death of someone who tried to perpetrate a reprehensible murder. Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman said that the despicable letter demonstrates Abbas' open support of terror and encourages further killings.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has apologized to Prime Minister Netanyahu on behalf of the administration of President Barack Obama. The move came after an unidentified American official reportedly used a pejorative term about Netanyahu, accusing him of cowardice over his position on Iran going nuclear. There was widespread condemnation following the slur, which was published in The Atlantic magazine, authored by Jeffrey Goldberg, who is considered close to the Obama administration. Both Kerry and officials at the White House immediately distanced themselves from the remarks, and the top U.S. diplomat also made a personal apology to Netanyahu during a telephone call. A State Department spokesman described the exchange as a good conversation about ways to improve bilateral relations between the leaders of both nations, along with other issues.
As time runs out to reach a long-term nuclear accord with Iran by the November 24th deadline, there are reports that Washington and Tehran have moved into an effective state of détente over the past year. The Wall Street Journal is quoting senior U.S. and Arab state officials who say that a major change has been taking place over recent months and that the Obama administration is using the ongoing nuclear negotiations as a means to expand cooperation on a range of issues. According to the Journal, the former rival nations are forming an alignment because of converging interests, including the shared goals of defeating the Islamic State terror group in Syria and Iraq and overseeing peaceful political transitions in Iraq and Afghanistan. The journal is also claiming that the White House has markedly softened its confrontational stance toward the Hamas and Hezbollah terror organizations, both of which are committed to Israel's destruction. Sources are quoted as saying that the top American diplomats, including Secretary Kerry, negotiated with Hamas' primary sponsor, Qatar, in ceasefire efforts to end Hamas missile strikes on Israel from Gaza this past summer. American and Lebanese officials are also cited, saying that U.S. intelligence agencies have repeatedly assisted defense agencies in Lebanon close to Hezbollah, warning them of threats posed by Sunni extremist groups, including the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and Iran's Syria-based ally, the Nusra Front. Some say that these recent developments have the potential to dramatically shift the geopolitical balance in the region.
As predicted, voters across America returned control of the Senate to the Republican Party during the 2014 midterm elections. Democrats have held power in the Senate since 2007, and the Republican victory is being widely celebrated, not only in the United States, but abroad. The party retained its control of Congress, where it has been in charge since 2011. Political analysts believe the outcome will affect a positive shift in foreign policy, leading to greater American support for Israel and the Netanyahu administration.
Zivotofsky versus Kerry. That's the name of a case currently dividing the U.S. Supreme Court, and it's over the status of Jerusalem. Unlike anywhere else in the world where the nations of U.S. citizens born abroad are registered, when American citizens are born in Jerusalem, the U.S. State Department refuses to name Israel as the country of birth on their passports. Instead, the U.S. leaves the line blank. At issue are American attempts to remain neutral regarding Arab claims of sovereignty over Jerusalem. Congress first passed a law in 1995 calling for U.S. recognition of a united Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. In 2002, Congress passed another law ordering the State Department to start listing Israel on passports, but until now it has refused to do so. The American parents of 12-year-old U.S. citizen Menachem Zivotofsky have been waging a legal battle in the courts since their son's birth in Jerusalem to have his passport state that he was born in Israel. After years of litigation, the matter is now before the Supreme Court to determine if U.S. policy toward Jerusalem should be set by Congress or the White House. A ruling on whether the 2002 law should be enforced or overturned is expected by June of 2015.
Horrific massacres by the Islamic State are being committed with greater frequency as the terrorist army continues to storm across Syria and Iraq. According to the Iraqi Human Rights Ministry, 322 members of the Sunni Abu Namir tribe have been murdered in cold blood for resisting the Islamic insurgency and cooperating with government troops. In its third and latest major massacre, ISIS forces reportedly lined up and shot to death 50 people in a village north of Ramadi. The bodies of 4 children, 6 women, and 40 tribesmen were found dumped in a well. 17 others were abducted. Meanwhile, in Syria, Human Rights Watch is reporting the torture and abuse of 150 Kurdish children captured by Islamic State fighters near Kobani earlier this year. According to the testimony of several captives who escaped, 150 Kurdish boys were kidnapped on their way home from school in May. The international rights group is condemning the latest outrage by ISIS, saying that since the beginning of the Syrian uprising, children have suffered the horrors of detention and torture, first by the government of President Bashar al-Assad and now by ISIS. They went on to say that this latest evidence of torture and abuse of children by the Islamic State underscores why no one should support its criminal enterprise.
In happier news, a renowned American culinary magazine has awarded top honors to Tel Aviv in a number of categories for excellence in the food industry. Safar ranked the Israeli city as one of the most outstanding culinary destinations in the world. There are more than 4,500 restaurants in Tel Aviv, amounting to one venue per 1,000 people, considered to be unprecedented by Middle East standards. This is just the latest recognition of prestige for Tel Aviv, which was named one of the coolest cities in the Middle East earlier this year by the New York Times, and National Geographic also hailed Tel Aviv as one of the best coastal cities in the world. Dining establishments in Jerusalem also earned special mention by the American periodical, which highly recommends meals served in the Machane Yehuda market. Also coming in for praise is the spectacular selection of wines offered passengers aboard Israel's national airline, El Al.
More than 1 million Jewish children have been killed by abortion in Israel since 1948. Israel is currently engaged in a demographic war for its very survival as a Jewish state. Imagine what a difference 1 million more Jews would have made for Israel. Friends of Efrat saves the lives of thousands of children every year by providing support to pregnant women in distress. Since 1977, Efrat has saved over 30,000 lives and is recognized as a world leader in preventing abortions. You can play a major role in Israel's survival now by helping us save Israel's unborn children.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in a beautiful day on our rooftop studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Jonathan Feldstein, Director of Heart to Heart. Jonathan, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, Josh.
Tell our viewers a little bit about what is Heart to Heart.
So Heart to Heart is a program that we established a few years ago in order to bring Christians specifically to Israel, and when they're here to be able to donate blood and make an active contribution. And for people who live too far away or not eligible to donate blood, we created what we believe is the world's first virtual blood donation program, meaning that anyone can sponsor a unit of blood financially and give us the resources in Israel to make sure that there's always a safe and plentiful blood supply.
This is a program under the auspices of Magen David Adom. Some of our viewers might not know what Magen David Adom is. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right, good question. So Magen David Adom was established in 1930 here in the land of Israel, before the state, as Israel's ambulance and blood services. Officially, that was it became law in 1950 that Magen David Adom has to do these essential national tasks of saving lives as Israel's ambulance, EMS, and blood services. And Magen David Adom literally means the red star of David or the red shield of David, and it's so appropriate sitting here in the city of David and thinking about the shield of David, literally and figuratively protecting all of the people of Israel.
Now, many Israelis give blood on a regular basis because, we have conflict, we have soldiers that need blood, but your organization does something very unique where you're going actually to Christians and getting them to donate blood as well. How has the response been?
I want to tell you, Josh, the response has been unbelievable, and not to use the word lightly, heartwarming. We recently had a group of American veterans, military veterans, who were here and donated blood, and Israelis saw this happening and understood that there was something going on very special by Christians coming to Israel and donating blood and sharing the one source of life that we can all share with one another. And it's been very powerful. And the other benefit is that typically when Americans are here, it's often during a season when Israelis are on vacation and not in the blood donation mode. So we're able to bring Americans to donate blood, or sometimes non-Americans to be able to donate blood and add to the blood supply at times when Israelis aren't thinking about donating themselves.
I was speaking at a Christian event a few months ago, and at the event itself, there was actually a Magen David Adom truck there taking blood from the participants. Is this a normal event?
Is it normal? It's not normal. It's normal in the state of Israel where anything can go. But what's become quite wonderful is that there have been tens of thousands of people who have gone out of their way when they're in the land, whether it's at a convention, whether it's on a bar bat mitzvah trip, or any other type of event, to go out of their way and, as we say, leaving the greatest gift behind. It's quite wonderful, and it's becoming more and more normal in Israel, Josh.
One of the organizations that I'm familiar with has actually donated an ambulance to Magen David Adom. Is this something that you're seeing more and more? I know that Jews do that quite a bit. Is this a new trend in the Christian world?
So we've been really blessed, Josh, by the rising number of individuals and ministries that have joined to participate in donating an ambulance. It makes a tremendous difference. We recently had a presentation, not just over my shoulder, of an ambulance to one ministry, and all the ambulances collectively that they had donated have already helped save over 30,000 people. So people really do get that. It's ministries that are large enough can afford a $100,000 contribution, and for those who can't, or individuals who want to make a equally vital contribution, so we sponsor a unit of blood for $100, which is much more manageable on a grassroots basis.
What's next for Heart to Heart? What does the future hold for you?
We've been seeing a rising number of partnerships, ministries that have taken on Heart to Heart as their program to bless and stand with Israel, and it's actually snowballing. We are very thrilled to be able to contribute to the Blood Center, to the needs of an ongoing operation that are typically running short, but not always. And we will probably be participating in the building of a brand new blood center here in Israel that has to be built underground as a chemically and biologically reinforced bomb shelter, and at a tune of $100 million.
Jonathan, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Well, what I'd like to offer is, first of all, to invite anyone who's here in Israel to contact me. And if you're eligible, we'd love to have you come and donate blood. If your ministry is interested in partnering with us at Heart to Heart, we'd be thrilled to do so. And we appreciate so much the love and the fellowship and the standing with Israel, that the outpouring of blood and of love that the people watching represent today, and we're grateful. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Jonathan, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
It is heartbreaking to learn that there are over 40,000 abortions in Israel every year, many of which are due to financial concerns. The Efrat organization saves the lives of thousands of Jewish children each year by providing support to pregnant women in distress. Please help us save thousands more.
Up next, shining light from Israel.
There are 193 countries in the United Nations today. Of these, one has been singled out as an especially egregious offender of the organization's mandate to preserve and enhance human freedom and tolerance. Can you guess which it is? It has about 7 million citizens, of whom a fifth are Arab. The government is vibrantly democratic, its press wide open, and religious freedom fully respected. Women have equal rights and gays live openly. The answer is Israel. Here are some facts. 38% of all the resolutions of the United Nations Human Rights Council, the UN's top human rights body, that are critical of specific countries have been directed at Israel alone. The Council has a permanent agenda that governs every regular session. This agenda is composed of 10 items, one of which is always reserved for criticizing Israel. Between 2006, when the Council was created, and 2012, it published 48 reports condemning Israel. During that same period, there were 9 reports on Syria's mass killings and torture of its own citizens, 3 on Iran's genocide-threatening regime, and not one on, for example, China, which denies more than 1 billion people elementary freedoms. I could go on, but I think you get the idea. So we are faced with a choice. Either there's something very wrong with Israel that I'm not telling you about, or there's something very wrong with the United Nations that you should know about. Let's look into the history of both. First, Israel. Ever since its establishment, voted for by the United Nations, by the way, in 1948, Israel has had to fight its neighbors solely in order to survive. It has endured innumerable acts of terrorism, the most intense from 2000 to 2005, the so-called Second Intifada, in which children and other innocents were blown up in places like pizza parlors and buses and at weddings. It still suffers from rocket attacks against civilians from the Gaza Strip, which is controlled by a terror group, Hamas. whose stated reason for existence is to destroy Israel. Israel has developed a strong military and a web of security fences and walls to protect itself. Do these security measures cause hardships to people who must deal with this network? Yes, they do. Israel would like nothing better than to tear all these fences and walls down. But bitter experience informs it as to what would happen if it did. Is Israel a perfect country? Of course not. But it is one of the freest and most open societies in the world. That's Israel's history. Here's the UN's. In 1949, when the UN admitted Israel as a member state, the UN had 58 member countries and a clear democratic and pro-Western orientation. Today, the UN has 193 member countries, most of which are not even free. Among its many negative changes, the UN changed the principle of self-determination from a post-World War II, post-Holocaust human rights principle to a tool to wield against the West, especially against Israel. This reached its fullest expression at the notorious Durban Conference, held in South Africa in 2001. The Durban Conference was billed as a UN World Conference against racism and intolerance, but it turned into an orgy of anti-Israel and anti-Jew propaganda. Of all the bad actors in the world, the final Durban Declaration found one state guilty of racial discrimination. You guessed it, Israel. The Durban Declaration, however, remains to this day the centerpiece of the UN's allegedly anti-racism agenda. There's only one country in the world whose very legitimacy is questioned. Only one country that is openly threatened with annihilation. That country is Israel. And what has the United Nations done about it? Worse than nothing. It has itself become a global platform for anti-Semitism and the destruction of the Jewish state.
Please stay tuned for the ICJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
When Israel was established in 1948, it was exactly as the prophet Ezekiel foresaw. Thus says the Lord, behold, I will cause you to come up from your graves, and I will bring you into the land of Israel. Israel literally arose from the ashes of the Holocaust, one of the greatest miracles in human history. Still today there are some 200,000 Holocaust survivors which still live in Israel. According to the Israeli government, there are still 1/3 of them who are in need and live below the poverty line. Over the past 3 years, the Lord placed a unique opportunity before the International Christian Embassy to help those heroes who survived the darkest chapter of Jewish history.
In December 2009, the Aid Department of the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, ICEJ Aid, was approached by Shimon Sabag, the director of the social welfare organization Yad Ezer Lehaver, who was looking for support for a special project. Having been shocked to see Holocaust survivors coming to his soup kitchen for food, he realized that there was a distinct need and began a project to house 14 survivors in the building next door to the offices of the organization.
When we were actually approached by the organization Yad Ezer Lehaver in Haifa for Holocaust survivors, we somehow knew when we visited the project and visited the director that we had stumbled on something very unique. The project was very unique, there's nothing like it in the land, and also the organization itself had a proven track record, and we just knew that we had to start working with them.
Thanks to the generous giving of faithful Christian supporters worldwide, the ICEJ has assisted Yad Ezer Lehaver in achieving what was once just a dream, a neighborhood of multi-dwelling facilities able to provide practical care and a comfortable and safe home for more than 100 Holocaust survivors.
When we actually first met him, Shimon had a great heart and lots of dreams, but his vision for this place was at the most to maybe house 20 people. And we started on this together, not knowing what would happen, and seeing in the end this amazing street full of buildings.
The Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors has captured the attention of the Israeli press and a number of Israeli leaders and dignitaries. At ceremonies marking the stages of completion, the attendance of senior government officials and leaders has given voice to the need to assist these individuals who have suffered so much. In the past year, the Haifa Home dedicated a synagogue on its premises to provide a place for the survivors to participate in Shabbat services and observe Jewish holidays. The synagogue also provided the opportunity for some of the survivors to have their bar mitzvahs, since many of them were denied this rite of passage due to being interned in concentration camps.
The Holocaust survivors are very old. They are from their end 70s into their 90s, and are quite a lot of them who are poor, they cannot live by themselves anymore, and who are lonely. And that's actually why it was so necessary to have a home for them, where they could feel cared for and they would be able to live their life in security and in a good atmosphere.
I didn't expect in my life that I'm going to end up here, quiet, the price is right, I don't have to pay too much. And I'm so grateful to the International Christian Embassy. After all what we went through, they built for us a home where I'm going to spend the rest of my life here. I'm going to die here. And I'm grateful to all the people in the world who are helping us.
Please prayerfully consider what you can do in order to stand with us to help those last surviving heroes here in Israel.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.